Hello and welcome back to Pensive Podcast. I'm Chloé and I'm the host of this podcast. I'm the founder of Pensive and I run workshops and events and courses, and I'm here to help you create a more mindful, productive and relaxed life. On today's episode of the podcast, it's just me again. Hello. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. I'm really enjoying doing this. I think I say that every episode, I love doing this because I genuinely do. I'm having fun. I didn't realize I could have so much fun just talking. It allows all the thoughts in my brain just whizzing around just to escape through my mouth into the microphone, into your ears. And now you have to think about those things with me. So thanks. We can all share in the thinking. It relieves me of the great weight of my own existence. On that very strange note, I would like to say that today I would like to talk about self-help. Woohoo! This was kind of inspired by me being nosy. And this includes when I'm at the bookshop where literally everyone's just minding their own business. Why, of all the places to be nosy, why am I up in everyone else's business at a bookshop? I like to look at who's lingering in what section, in what genre of the bookshop. So I always kind of just make my way around slowly, looking at everything, every single section. So I just love being in there. It's quiet. There's books. What's not to love? And also I just love looking at people. So I just walk around each section. And my favorite section to linger in is the self-help / mind, body, spirit / popular economics, or I don't know. It's not economics. It's like soft economics. I don't know, but sometimes they just call it economics. There's a name for it. It's economics for the people. I was in a bookshop and I was in the self-help bit. And I saw some teenagers and they had, I'm assuming they're teenagers. They looked very young to me. So I don't know. Their mannerisms were very teenagery. And they were looking at this book that I've also read about relationships and attachment styles. But my first thought was when I was 15 and going through that, I didn't have any books about relationships. I was just figuring it out. Should I have had some books to help me figure this out? Because it was horrible. Or should I have gone through it and toughed it out like I did? You know, those relationships when you're a teenager that last a week, but it feels like a lifetime. It's like, oh, we started dating on Monday. We broke up on Friday via text, you know? But the reason I started thinking about it was, I don't know, I read a lot of self-helpy books, I guess. And I think this particular book, obviously, because it's about relationships and love and being in a couple and stuff, obviously every teenager is like, oh, I just want to date. But this book, if you haven't read it or are not aware of it, is about attachment styles. So anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, and secure attachment. And it lists definitions and explanations for each of these styles. So if you're an anxious attachment, you might act in this way when you're in a relationship. And it lists things, concrete things you might do, why you might have this attachment style, and what you can do to move towards a secure attachment style. And the same goes for the avoidant attachment style. So it is like a psychological underpinning for how we act in relationships. And seeing a teenager with it, obviously I don't know them. I don't know. But if that was me, I'd pick and be like, this is the reason why you are the way you are. It says it in the book. It's kind of a cheat sheet, I guess, for the messiness of love and relationships and going through those difficult feelings and emotions, because you can just point to it in a book and say this person is avoidant. They fall under this category, they act this way, they're not secure, I should break up with them, they will never change. Obviously, there's a good reason to read these kind of books. Obviously, I've read it. It's like, it's good. It gives you an understanding. But you have to also have the understanding that people are complex, people can change. You at 15 and is hopefully not going to be the same person you are at 25 or 35, probably more edging towards 35 because 25, we're still developing. We're still very confused beings. But I think at that age, and I know I would have jumped to some conclusions, and thinking about that, it kind of threw me some questions about the self-help industry as a whole, which I feel like is exploding. The most popular genre of books right now is kind of self-help mixed with mind, body, spirit, mixed with economics for the people, I guess, or like business startup, entrepreneurship, that's the word, that kind of thing, all mixed into one. So you've got like, spirituality, meditation, yoga, and business, and relationship attachment stuff. Like it's all somehow one entity in Waterstones. And I think it's good because it means that we're curious to learn more about each other and ourselves. People want to be able to take better care of themselves. And because therapy is a luxury, as it's, a personal expense, unless you get it on NHS, the only way to kind of help yourself more productively, I suppose, is to read a book. Because, if you read a book about it, serious. You watch a YouTube video about it, not serious. But a book, that's serious business. I wanted to talk about self-help, what I think about it, because obviously my business, I feel, falls under self-help. It does have many aspects of mind, body, spirit, and getting your life in order type things mixed with a sense of mindfulness and groundedness. So it very much falls into that category. And I'm aware of this, like completely 100% aware. But it doesn't mean I can't have some criticisms or gripes or questions. And it's something that I had to confront with myself, because if you're starting a business within an industry that you're unsure of, you have to make sure where you stand and what you value and what you're about. Let me get a bit personal. I don't know why recently I'm like, okay, it's fine to be personal on the internet, but not too personal. I think I spoke about it a bit before about why I started Pensive, but more concretely, why I focused on like self-help and how I found myself in self-help and productivity before I even started any of this. And I just remember being in Japan, sitting on the floor of an English classroom before my students came in, and I had a schedule, and I was staring at this like mint schedule. For some reason, just staring at it, I was like, this is going to solve all of my problems. If I get my life together, if I schedule everything in this calendar, my life will significantly improve. And I mean, it's just the book. It can't solve all my problems, but it did spur me on to actually getting things together and looking at my life and how I wanted to spend my time more profoundly. And yeah, it took several years of trial and error with various productivity methods and learning about myself to actually get to where I am, which is still a work in progress. Something I was thinking about was like, what even made me reach for self-help in the first place? And I realized it was like a place of absolute desperation. Basically, I was in a place physically and subsequently mentally that I just didn't want to be in. And at that point, I thought, well, the only person who can help me is me, hence self-help. So I didn't really know where to start. And I don't know if at the time that the self-help industry was as big as it is now, or maybe I just wasn't aware of it. But where I started was scheduling and with like bullet journaling. I thought if I wrote down every aspect of my life on paper, journaling everything, then somehow it would magically make sense. Of course, it didn't magically all come together, but it started to come together in a way that made sense for me mentally, that I could actually not feel so chaotic and overburdened. I researched every single productivity method that it was out there. Eisenhower Matrix, GTD, bullet journal, second brain, deep work, all of this kind of stuff. As it is often said by the creators of these methods, like this is the thing that's gonna, get you to where you need to be. Like if you completely focus on these productivity methods, that this is the key, shall we say, the key to unlocking your full potential. And I believed it 100%. But these kinds of productivity methods and books especially can be found in the self-help section. When I, was looking for a way out, that's what I came across, was all these like very regimented, kind of rigid systems. And alongside that, there's all like the number laws of things. It's like the 48 laws of power or whatever it is. And then like the 6, blah, 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 and the 8, the 9, there's like the habits for highly intelligent people. I think there's 9 of them. There's always like a set number. It feels very much like an elongated listicle like article. But I found them to be unrealistic and forceful and just straight up weird. Like I think the first book I read that was like really famous, it was the Mark Manson one. The book is called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I really didn't like it. And I'm sorry to this man because I really didn't like it. It was really strange. And I understand that the idea behind it was to let things go because it's not as serious as we're not all making out to be. And like sometimes you have to say, whatever, just let it go, release it from my mind. It's not my problem. And I appreciate that sentiment. I just think the way that it was written for me, it didn't feel very inspirational. And I think that's the point of these kind of books, is to walk away with a sense of like inspiration about something. And I had the opposite. And I've gone on to read like a bunch of other books like Atomic Habits. And every time I've come across it to the point where I don't want to spend my time on them anymore, really. It feels very much like a marketing gimmick or a marketing ploy. Maybe that's just my reading of it. It could be the case. If that is the case, then I feel like being in the self-help section when your intention is to market a lifestyle or product is not good, because like I was when I was sitting on the floor of that English classroom, I was in a very vulnerable position. And the people who go to the bookshop to find advice for their situation are also in a vulnerable state or mentality. If you come across books that their only reason for existing is to have one pumped out every year to get someone to buy the course or buy a membership or something, I can't stand behind capitalizing on people's insecurities. She says, as she has a course, which I do have a course, but just know that everything that I do is not geared towards that. I put a lot of time and thought and reason, and I think about the people that are going to do the things that I put out and buy the things that I put out. So I make sure it's all like in line with my own values. So just a disclaimer there. When I think about that, and I think about the teenagers who who are looking for answers about their volatile teenage relationships, and the first place they go to is like the self-help section. They just want an answer. I think the self-help section, while it is good because, you know, it's there to help you, the opposite side is people are using it to their advantage to just further their like monetary goals. The other thing about self-help as well is that it kind of, like I said, is a cheat sheet for understanding your situation or the other people in your situation. Because if you go through it, you actually have to like try and figure it out for yourself. If you pick up a book, it's got all the answers. And I think we're in this kind of state where we are in a very solution-focused way of thinking. And I'm more about the process. When I say solution-focused, I mean the end result. Like, we want to just get to the end of what it is, the easiest path, because it's the least painful one. And life is a journey, and it is rather painful at times. And the process is rather long. At the same time, it's more rewarding, in my opinion. And I think the outcome-based thinking is not just symbolic of like self-help. I think it's just symbolic of just where we are. Google makes everything so easy, and apps make everything so easy, and we just want to buy something on Amazon and it just makes it easy. We don't want to figure out anything. It's too hard. And in my own like NPR practice as well, I talk about process versus outcome-based thinking. And that if you focus on the process of what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve, then your outcome is inevitable, right? Your outcome will just clicks into place because you're actually doing the thing that gets you to the outcome. And I want to be able to apply that to my own life and livelihood. And the idea of vulnerability being an inherent part of the human condition and experience is something that's so frightening. And I completely understand wanting to cut that part out and find the answers in a book and to gamify your life. I think it was on the Creative Minds YouTube channel. I remember him talking about life being gamified and people wanting it to be a closed loop. And, you know, because in a game, they program things for you to figure out, like each level has a solution, but life cannot be gamified and codified, and there's no Easter eggs. You have to go through it, and you don't know what the ending is going to be. And to accept that sometimes you don't know the answer and you can't get there quickly is something that I know a lot of people are struggling with, and that the self-help industry absolutely capitalizes on. Because a lot of these books, they have their own, and this is excluding the psychology book. I'm not talking about the relationship book at all in this. This is like, I just use that as an example because it's in that space in the bookshop, and it just inevitably gets thrown under the self-help banner. I just think books like that just get put in a difficult position because it's there to absolutely serve the people, and you can't know who's going to pick it up. You have to be in the right headspace to be able to understand the parts of it that apply to you and how to apply it. And going back to like self-help books, they often present to you quite like a rigid formula to gamify and solve all the problems in your life through the 48 laws. Or however many laws. There's no laws. Actually, there are some laws, but not laws to like solutionify, that's not a word, to figure out your life. I think the best way to take a lot of these books is to take the bits that work for you and not treat it as all knowing. The other thing that comes with like these kind of self-help books is that it's presented to you with like a certain lifestyle and a certain person attached to it. And they say, hey, look at what I've achieved. Look what I've done. With this, you can do it too. And I'm here to say that they are just a 0.0001% of person who's achieved that thing, but also they probably had a whole team and a lot of different factors that led to their success, not just this one thing. That is one factor that they can present to you as part of their success, and that's how you should take it. You should take this one part of their success and use a part of it to apply it to your success. And that's the kind of attitude I have when I'm like also presenting my method. Is like, okay, I have this thing, and in its entirety, it functions like this and it'll help you like this. If you just want to take this one part, do that, because I don't know you. I don't know your life. So I have no right to tell you how to live. So just take the bits that apply to you and be merry. I think the best person you can always turn to when you have questions about yourself and how to direct your life is yourself. Who else can you turn to when everything is chaos, when everything, like who knows you best? You. So even if you don't think you have the answer, you can do it. I promise you can figure it out for yourself, because the answer doesn't always lie in someone else's words and someone else's success and what you perceive to be success. You are successful in your own right, in your own way. And you should take the lessons that you've learned and apply them to your current and troubling circumstance. Because if you've survived this far, you can keep going. Trust me, you can just keep going. Things will not always be this difficult, hopefully, fingers crossed for you. Everyone has different life experiences and different ways of attacking it or defending themselves or going through it. And the way that I've tried to motivate myself is relying on myself and knowing that whatever has served me in the past can serve me again. And basically using myself as a Google and searching within myself like, hey, what did I do last time? And boop, 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 all these answers will come up. Or you can actually use Google. Google is a great tool. It's not that I don't recommend these self-help books. I just want them to be perceived, as some of them are, as A, marketing, and B, not the be-all and end-all of you saving your life and improving your life. Because my best self-help books, so I've got a list of 3. The first one is All About Love, Bell Hooks. The second is The Reenchantment of Everyday Life, Thomas More. And the third is Creatures of a Day, Irvin D. Yalom. So the first one, All About Love, Bell Hooks, like, I don't know why it took me so long to read this book. And honestly, the most I knew about it was from that Childish Gambino song. It's like, all about some love on the bell hooks. But I read it and it's one of those things that's written so simply that you can't just help but I read the book, I read it in a day. It's just, how does one even describe a good book without someone else reading it? And it wasn't about grandiose love. It wasn't about platonic love. It was just about the idea of love that we have for ourselves and for other people and what we've been taught, and maybe to question it and to think about what that love means to us and what love means to us in general, outside of romantic Hollywood love, I suppose. And yeah, the idea of self-love outside of what's, again, being marketed to us is like candles and yoga and bath, you know. There are so many things that will resonate with us in our personal human experience. I mean, half of these things that I'm saying, I feel like Bell Hooks did not say specifically, but that's what I took from it. The other one is The Reenchantment of Everyday Life by Thomas More, which I know a lot of people will be put off by because I think it's quite like spiritual. I wouldn't call it like new age spiritual. I think it's just like spiritual. I thought it was beautiful. I thought that it made me realize there's so much wonder in the grey skies of London and the burgundy bricks. But there's so much around us that we take for granted, and that there's so much we can do with our time and spend our time and the people around us that we just don't sit with and appreciate. That I really, it made me think a lot more. And Creatures of the Day by Irvin D. Yalom, I hope I'm saying that right, is a recounting of sessions that I think he's a psychotherapist that he had with various clients. The first one, I remember a session between him and an elderly man or someone who had been writing their like PhD thesis for years, to the point where their supervisor like died. He brought in the emails that had been shared between him and his supervisor, and all the psychotherapist did was read them. And then that brought about, I don't know, a sense of satisfaction to the student who had been doing I think it's PhD. And I liked it because there was no resolution. I like stories where there's no resolution. It's not a story. I like books with no conclusion or resolution, or this is why it's important. You should think about it like this, because then you start thinking about what it meant to that person and why it was included as the first story and the opening to this book. But my point is, I often find inspiration and motivation for the pursuit of existence outside of self-help when it's not directly geared to make you think this is meant to help you, you know? I just like books that have musings about life and what it means to be a human in this strange world. And I think if I read a book about photography, or maybe something about like a fashion icon like Vivienne Westwood, I think I would get the same takeaway from those kinds of books, to be able to see the world through someone else's eyes, especially someone with great impact or a different way of looking at the world. The other thing I realized I didn't touch on was the entrepreneurship, because again, we're just in a current state where there's a lot of economic uncertainty and, structural difficulties. I'm not going to talk politics. I'm not the person, but there's a lot of that going on. And so we can't rely on institutions to support us in that way. So I understand why there's a sudden uptick in entrepreneurship, along with social media giving you the platforms to do that, and a lot of people seeing the rewards that people get when they put themselves online. But again, it just feels like exploitation of vulnerability, especially with the social media angle. Like, the more you put out there about yourself, the more you're rewarded. The more that people know, the more that they hate you, and it's like it's a weird thing. And you can't just be absolutely neutral about someone. You have to love them or hate them. But going back to the entrepreneurship, it's that self-help, self-reliance to the extreme. I think that there needs to be some kind of middle ground of, yes, you can help yourself emotionally, and you can also start a business. I just realized I'm talking to myself. I just realized this directly correlates to me personally. Anyway, you can directly help yourself emotionally. You can directly help yourself and start a business so that you don't have to be a part of the current system that we have set up. But it doesn't mean you have to take it on all by yourself, everything all the time. Like, there is help available, mentorships and therapists. What I'm trying to say is, don't use yourself as your entire support system, and also use resources outside yourself, such as therapy, if you can. The other thing is, for other recommended self-help suggestions I have, is hobbies. Do you know how much time I've spent just making a book? I'm like, oh, my problem is solved now. I didn't have to overthink it. I did something with my hands, and now I feel great. There's also talking to your friends, obviously a support system that you can use, your family included. But there's just so many things that you can find in your immediate life that are basically free resources that you can use as self-help. Recently, one I've found very helpful as well is just doing what I want, which I think I've been doing my entire life, but now I'm like actively just like, yeah, you have your own issues over there. I'm still going to do the thing that I was going to do. That is absolutely self-help or self-care, I guess. I think being stubborn is self-help. Some people, I've been called stubborn many times over my lifetime, but that has served me into becoming the person that is very resilient today. It's not a negative thing to know what you want and just do it. I just wanted to tie that back to me repeatedly saying like the person who usually has most of the answers is you. So even if it goes against what other people have said, if it feels right for you, I think you should just do it. Obviously within reason. I'm not saying go out and commit crimes, but like if there's something within you that feels honest and correct, then there's no reason you shouldn't do it, and you shouldn't give credence or validation to someone else because they've done it before you. It just, if someone's done something before you, it just kind of shows that it can be done. If no one's done it before you, then just be the first. And that's good too. Just be mindful of who is qualified to tell you what you can do with your life and how to navigate it. Because usually the qualifications that these people have is like life experience, which, yeah, it does qualify you because you're qualified in the school of life. When it comes to like specific outcomes and things, like what makes you think that you aren't qualified in judging your own life and how to go about navigating issues and problems? You have a PhD in you. The self-help genre can sometimes make people feel like they're failing if they're not constantly improving. What's your take on that pressure? The only person putting that pressure on you to constantly improve is yourself. So you can be the person to also take your foot off the pedal. It goes both ways. You are on the accelerator and the brake. It suggests that there is a way to graph or track this constant improvement. I think people around you can tell when you're in a better space. And I think that's the best marker for improvement. It's not whether you've like made more money or traveled to more countries. Like as long as you're enjoying what you're doing, I think that's the best thing to do. I don't see how you can fail. I think that's linked to societal markers of what you should be doing at certain ages, which I greatly feel the pressures of. At this point in my life, I should be married and have 5 kids. No thanks. But that makes me happy. I'm fine with not having any of that. I'm good. What are some of the most effective productivity habits you've incorporated into your life, and how did they change your daily routine? I have this thing called the NPR method. Yeah, that's been the most beneficial thing, is creating this thing that actively incorporates mindfulness. Like it's the outside of productivity stuff that's helped me the most. It's when I'm able to like fully relax or be present, and then I have the capacity to actually be productive. There's no trick. There's no hack. There's no life hack. It's just about having a balance and being able to put yourself and maintain a comfortable headspace and being happy with where you're at, and then just go about your work and you're like, oh, okay, I can focus on it. Like there's literally, it's not rocket science. It's the NPR method. How do you handle feelings of burnout or overwhelm when you're trying to stay productive? Well, if you've hit that point, then you've gone too far and you don't push yourself anymore and you completely stop. If I've done that, then I realize that it's not at that point that I've messed up. It's the 3 days before that I've messed up. Because if you feel yourself reaching any kind of strain or stress and then you keep going, that's where the issue is. It's not once you've hit the burnout. Sometimes you just you can't stay on top of it. You feel like you've got deadlines, you feel pressure. Like everyone succumbs to it at some point. But it's just doing your best to not reach that point consistently or at all, if possible. But that's the only way to do it, is to be absolutely mindful of what it feels like when you're starting to edge towards some kind of overwhelm or burnout phase, and to immediately pull back and say, okay, what self-care and things do I have in place to calm me down and to put me in a calmer headspace? In your experience, how can someone know when it's time to seek therapy versus just relying on self-help resources? I think when the overwhelm is consistent and like a 6 out of 10, I think it's necessary to build up some kind of resilience and to use as the resources you have at hand. But when you go through like a severely distressing time or trauma, and there's absolutely no way that you can cope with it, then yeah, therapy immediately. Immediately. But if it's something you feel like you can move past in a number of weeks, then maybe self-help. But if it's months, too many highs and lows, or consistent highs and lows, or consistent lows, if you can, therapy. Because then the burden isn't all yours. I think that's the crux of this, is like it's a lot to take on for one person. Also, I just remembered something that was like really important in my own life journey in therapy, is that I'm thinking about like the coexistence of therapy and self-help. A lot of the work that's done in the room in therapy, a lot of it actually comes to fruition or starts to make sense outside of the room. Like that's where you actually put it into practice. And maybe that's where the self-help works best, because that's the moment where what you've been talking about can actually, you can action it and it can sink in. So maybe in between reading self-help and then maybe like taking a break and then trying to let it sink in and action it and like actually work through it. Maybe that's how this therapy self-help thing can like coexist. Because even when I read like a lot of psychology books, and my therapist gives me like books to read. So my final kind of reflections on self-help and therapy and where I stand, and I think it's very obvious that I'm wary of this genre. I think it definitely has its positives, and I'm quite skeptical of it at the same time, and also very aware that I fall neatly within it. That's fine. For my final just wrap up of this episode, what was a pivotal moment in your own personal growth journey that led you become involved in the self-help field? I think I spoke about this already. It's one of those things where, oh, this worked for me. Let me make it a business and tell everyone. Yeah, it was in Japan when I was going through I need to figure out my life and make sure that I'm actually living the life that I want. The NPR thing just came to me like random. I honestly downloaded it from the sky, like and then I started reading like psychology like text, and I was like, okay, it's from somewhere, but it felt like it just like landed in my brain. Yeah, and I think I've always been the kind of person that wants to make situations better for others, either through talking to them or creating environments which they feel safe and things like that. I like when people, you can tell they start feeling like themselves again. I think that's something I've always strived for myself. It's like sometimes you go through periods where you feel like you've lost yourself and then you find yourself, and that's kind of where I want to sit, and is helping people find themselves and whatever that version of themselves means to them at that point, and then find a different version and a different version, etc., etc., etc. For someone who's feeling stuck or unsure about where to start with self-improvement, what advice would you give them today? I would say get a pen and a notebook or a piece of paper and just start writing, and write until you can write no more and see what you've written. Let the spirit of the pen possess you, and don't think about what you're writing, even if it's cringe or weird. Just keep writing, and then look at what you've written, put it down, put it away, then look at it the next day, and then you can start asking yourself some questions about what it is that's going on. And yeah, don't hold back when you're doing that exercise, because if you do, then you won't get any honest answers from yourself, from your subconscious, from your id, your ego. You won't get the answers from the Freudian goodness. So I just want to put some final questions to you before I end this episode. If you are so inclined to seek kind of self-help things or self-improvement, or just try to improve yourself, what is it that you feel is lacking, or why did you seek it in the first place? And can you reframe that sense of lack? And for why did you seek it in the first place? Was it fear? Or was it something positive like inspiration or motivation? And maybe you can turn the fear into excitement or inspiration. Sometimes it's just enough to find the answers within yourself and then mess up and then try again. So that's the end of this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Please do all the fun social media stuff, like subscribe to the YouTube channel for all the latest podcast episodes, and follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also have a Substack newsletter, which you can subscribe to for updates and various creative musings. And check out the website for all pensive related info. So I hope that this was an interesting listen. And I'll see you in the next one.